Hello, everybody. It's your boy Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming here. Today, we are only, what is it, 5 days-ish from Endwalker Early Access, and you know I'm excited. So I decided, I contemplated even, what to do, what to upload for these 5 days, and I thought, well, the answer's obvious, isn't it? We need to talk about Final Fantasy XIV. I know it's obvious. It's a layup, but it's a layup for a reason. And you know I'm going to drive that paint. Now, this will be a two-part series. For this episode, I'm going to talk about my worries, my trepidations, my hesitations even, about Endwalker. And tomorrow, we are going to talk about what I am personally looking forward to, my excitements, what I'm really intrigued about with Endwalker, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be a longer video than this one, so let's see. I do have a tendency to go on a bit. So, Endwalker. I am so freaking worried that we are just overhyping it, because how in the heck do you follow up Shadowbringers? I get it, Ishikawa is still on the writing team, and is writing Endwalker, and it's still the same group of people that did Shadowbringers, I think. But how do you catch lightning in a bottle twice in a row? Because Shadowbringers, just 5.0 and 5.3, was so good, and so elevated above the quality of the rest of the game, which was good in of itself. But Shadowbringers just blew everybody's expectations out of the water. How do you replicate that again? And I feel like we are all expecting so many various twists and turns. And sure, maybe they do that. But I'm kind of worried about what if they don't? You know? What if the story of Endwalker really is just, we have to go absorb Hydaelyn or something while Xenos goes and absorbs Zodiac, and then we fight, and that's the end. I'm a bit worried that they might just go that route, but at the same time, it depends upon how they write it and execute it, right? It's yeah, what if the story of Endwalker is not as surprising as we think it is? What if it is predictable? I don't think predictability... So I banged my freaking table there right on my elbow. That felt pleasant, by the way. What if the story is predictable? I'm not an advocate that predictability is automatically a detriment. I don't think that. But at the same time, with Endwalker, with the amount of twists and turns and just how intriguing the story of Shadowbringers was, I'm not going to lie, there is a bit of a worry that Endwalker's just not going to live up to that hype. And, well, I don't think that will come to fruition. I don't want to see the timeline where we just go, what if? What if Endwalker was so much better than it actually turned out being? You know? That's my main worry. I don't want this to be the Season 8 of Game of Thrones for Final Fantasy XIV's Hydaelyn and Zodiac arc, you know? Because they've done such incredible world building. They've done such a good job of pacing, character development, of making us care. What if they just, drop the bag at the end? And I'm worried about that. I'm genuinely worried about that. I don't think they will. They have done all the right setup. But the problem is the antagonists we have so far. Fandaniel and Xenos, right? Where it's we just came off the back of Shadowbringers. And I am not one to say that all villains have to be intriguing, depth, relatable, and have to have these complex backstories that motivate them. I'm not an advocate that all villains have to be like that to be a good villain. I think Kefka is a good villain. But I also think Emmett Selk and Elidibus were good villains. But they were good villains for different reasons. And then you go from that to Fandaniel and Xenos, where it appears at the moment that their motivation, despite what we want to theorycraft, and what even I have made theorycrafted in the past, that their motivations are purely one-dimensional. And that Fandaniel wants everybody and himself to die, and that Xenos just wants to have a good fight with us. And to be the finale of the overall story, coming off the back of the complex villains that we had in Shadowbringers, and even Stormblood with Yotsuyu, and even Heavensward with Thornton to a degree. You just wonder, are they going to be as memorable? Are you going to have those moments where you truly cared about the outcome of the story? Can you do that? Will they give Xenos and Fandaniel enough spotlight and shine to make them as good of villains as Emmett Selk and Elidibus were? Because that's a hard thing to do. Because, like I said, it was hard enough to catch lightning in a bottle for 5.0. They did it again with 5.3. How the heck do you do it 3 times in a row? That's my main concern. Will they give Xenos and Fandaniel sufficient development to make them good villains? I don't think they need to be sympathetic. I truly don't. But they need more to them. Xenos as a character was completely fine within the confines of Stormblood 3.0, 4.0. I think he was completely fine for that role. But you brought him back. And if you're going to bring him back, you need to add more depth and complexity to that character, to flesh him out more. Not necessarily to make him sympathetic or relatable, but to make him more well-established and just more imposing, and just more so of his own character. I think Rich Campbell, not many times will people ever say, you know what, when I think of great story critiques, I think of Rich Campbell, right? Great guy. But I think he nailed the head of the nail when he said, what made Xenos so good in Stormblood wasn't that Xenos himself was a good character. It was that his actions and even being in the story made everybody else a good character. Because that was his role. And he succeeded in that role. And he was very compelling in that role. But now he's in a different role. So his character has to develop and augment itself in such a way to where doing this, bringing him back, and making him the main villain throughout the entire arc, as we think right now, was worth it. That's going to be hard to do. I think they can do it. But we all know there's a world out there where you can write this story and not make them compelling. And that's a worry I have. Fandaniel especially, because Fandaniel's a very stereotypical Final Fantasy villain, where he's just crazy, right? And he's just evil for evil's sake. Again, not necessarily bad, but when you're coming off the backs of great villains in Shadowbringers, you need your A game. And you need to be able to make Fandaniel unique and interesting and engaging enough to where he's able to stand on his own. Because we just had 2 amazing Ascian villains, and you're trying to bring in the third one that we hadn't really had much screen time with, when all things considered. We haven't even had that much screen time with Xenos. Really, we only had a few cutscenes in Stormblood. And then the scenes where he was crawling back in the patches. But we really haven't had any one-on-one moment outside of the menagerie scene, right? With Xenos. Where we're just having a conversation and talking and explaining what we want. And what he wants. We apparently are going to get that in Endwalker from the launch trailer, which I'm looking forward to. But we need more, you know? And I'm just worried that we're not going to get more. And that's my main concern. Now, if we want to talk about gameplay, because I'm feeling confident in the raid, I'm not going to really say What if the raids suck, forehead? I don't think that's a really good, enough of a concern for me, right? I trust them enough to give them that leeway. I'm only bringing up the story and Xenos and Fandaniel specifically because I can see a world where they're not written satisfactorily enough in Endwalker. I can see that happening. My only other concern is I want to love Reaper, but the lack of OGCDs is kind of apparent to me. I haven't played it. I wasn't in the media tour, so I haven't actually had hands-on playtime with it. But I love the aesthetic. I love the story. I want to fight Xenos one-on-one as a Reaper in Endwalker. I'm just a bit concerned, you know, that it's going to be boring. It's my only main concern. I don't think it will, but I will be honest. That's a concern I have. I just want to get hands-on with that thing as fast as possible. So yeah, those are my main concerns with Endwalker. I want them to prove me wrong, and I want to be able to, and like a week after I've played the MSQ, right? Well, like right after I played the MSQ, I want to be able to come back to this video and laugh and be like, wow, I was really worrying over nothing, huh? I would love for that to happen. So, these were my concerns, my worries, my trepidations for Endwalker. Tomorrow, we are talking about what I'm looking forward to. I'm assuming that's going to be a longer video, maybe twice as long. We might go for 20 for that one. We might, we'll see. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure making the video. By the way, Endwalker, when those servers go live, I'm streaming.